I'm Clint Culberson here with lordsofconsciousness.com, and I am joined by Rae Sikora today here at Unify Fest in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Rae, how are you?
Doing great. Glad to be here. All these amazing people.
I know, right? We just watched your presentation that you gave, which was phenomenal. It opened up my eyes to many things, and you have a lot of personal history in what you've been teaching. So you've basically been going all around the world, really, teaching compassionate living. Is that correct?
Right.
In schools, is that, or what's usually
It really varies. I work a lot when I'm in other countries. It's often the Ministry of Education or whatever their education department is who brings me in. And they often get more than they actually bargained for. They're just hoping for less bullying in the schools or whatever, a little more calmness in the schools. But what they end up getting is the whole picture. Like, who is our family that we can include in that circle of compassion? And most people are just thinking, like, if I say nonviolence, to most people, probably not to you. If I say I work in nonviolence, people only think people to people. They're not thinking about these other aspects of violence. What about our actions and our choices and how they affect the environment, other species, like a bigger family, a bigger connected family. So I bring that in, and it, like when I'm working in the Middle East, it can blow their minds. It's like, whoa, I thought we were just talking about people here. But I love it. I don't see it as really fighting people where they're at. Yeah. I see it as that I get to bring them an invitation to a possibility. Right. This possibility that we could embrace all life in a way that supports our health, the health of the environment, and the well-being of all species. And we can choose this. So I'm just inviting them to this possibility. Yes. And sometimes people can't handle the invitation because they don't really get that. It's too distant. But I don't care. Then I just plant seeds. Right. And one day, those seeds will grow into something. It's in your presentation, you talked about, especially in terms of the environment, right? And I mean, it kind of goes along with everything you're saying, like compassion, not just for other human beings, but compassion for all living things, and even what we seemingly think is non-living, but just the entire earth in general. Exactly. You talked a lot about how important especially when we look at how do we repair the environment. You talked a lot about just your personal decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis, and speak a little bit to that if you could. I think that that's the most powerful. Okay, I'm really happy when people are working with lawmakers, politicians. I'm really happy when they're doing that. But the most powerful thing on the planet, I believe, is when over 7 billion people choose life. When those people say, I am no longer going to support this, this, and this because that is destroying my health, destroying other people, destroying the environment, other species are suffering. When people just stand up to it and say, I choose life. When 7 billion people choose life, that's going to be the most powerful. And there is a tipping point that happens. Do you know this concept of the tipping point? Like the 100 monkey kind of thing? It's kind of like that, yeah. And there's this amazing book called The Tipping Point. And he looks at throughout history, boom, when things just shifted in society. And it doesn't require 50% of the people to choose it. So as an example, this is a powerful example, because when we decided to abolish slavery in the U.S., 13% of the population supported it. 13. Wow. That's very small. That was the tipping point. Boom. Then it shifted. Everybody said, well, of course I was on board with that. Yeah. Everybody wants to be on the right side of justice and all that. Yeah, I was on board with that, but it was only 13%. Right. And it tipped. Yeah. So that kind of keeps me doing this work. People say, how have you been able to do this work for 40 years? And I go to some of the most violent places on the planet. In the Middle East, I'm going where women, children, and animals are things. They're property. Right. And as soon as you call them property, you can do whatever you want with your property. Right. And even in that, this whole idea of the tipping point keeps me hopeful. And that I'm not the only one out here. There's people like you and everyone who's here who are spreading this message of possibility. So it's really great. Like maybe I plant a seed, somebody else comes along behind me, they water it, they fertilize it, okay, good. So since you've been doing this for so long, do you feel that we are approaching that tipping point? I do. Yeah. And I know that if you just look at who is the loudest voice right now and what's going on in the culture, the amount of violence that we see, I mean, I don't have a TV, but I know there's, people see it on the news.
Oh, yeah.
Violence, violence, violence. If you just look at that, you could feel a lot of despair. You could feel hopeless.
Yeah.
But the reality is, because this tipping point is so close, this idea that we can choose the most loving path for all life, for the whole planet, for our one home, this idea is taking hold so strong that those who will not profit from it or who aren't comfortable with it because it's not familiar, they're just getting, they're getting louder and bigger, and it's just a reaction.
Yep.
It's okay. It's okay, because it's really, I've seen amazing changes, amazing shifts. And I love having this, like people say, how are you with getting older? I'm great with it because now I have this perspective. Wow, I've seen us come such a long way. And a lot of people ask me how I don't feel despair. Once in a while I do. And when I do, what I try to do is, instead of always looking at how far we have to go, I try to look back and see how far we've come and celebrate it.
Yeah.
To really celebrate it and say, wow, look at how far we've come. My lesbian friends, all of them can marry just like any heterosexual couple. If you would have told me I'd see that in my lifetime in the U.S.,
Right.
with the Christian right and everything else, I would have said there's no way. Yeah. But here it is. So we're shifting, we're moving, being able to expand this circle of compassion to include more and more and more of our unfamiliars, as I call them, but they're part of our family.
And that's what's so wonderful about coming to a festival like this, where you have varying degrees of ages. You have young people in their early 20s. You have, in their mid 30s, to 40s, the 50s, to 60s, to 70s. We have, elders of the Native American tribes here in New Mexico that are here, and actually from all around the world. And what a perspective it is. So can you kind of share with me what transformational festivals, how do you see them? What's the impact that they can make? What the ones you've been to in the past, or even here at Unify Fest?
I think that the openness to possibility and new ideas. This could have been one of those festivals that didn't have a stage that's the Earth stage, that brings it. Someone like me, I'm not someone who brought crystals to the stage or who is that kind of a healer on the planet. I'm like, you're practical. Here's what you can do, folks.
Right,
I'm so Earth, so it makes sense we're meeting here in front of the clay. I'm like, Earth. I mean, I meditate. There's a lot of things I do to keep myself balanced. Right. Yoga, meditation. But I think having all the elements included. Yeah. So they included me, I'm the earth element. And, they're including people who are more water element, more air element. And some festivals aren't so open to someone like me because I'm so earth. But the fact that these festivals are becoming more and more just open to all of the possibilities and all the voices, and realizing that it takes all of us. You have ways that you're living, that you're compassionate, that I'm not. And you have knowledge that I don't have. And I have knowledge that you don't have. Yeah. And how we grow and evolve, I stay open to your knowledge. Oh, it's very foreign to me, but I'm open to it. And you stay open to mine. And this is how we grow. And I think that we can be, as humans are a tough species. We can be a little judgmental. Oh, I'm not interested in that. That has nothing to do with me. And these are some of our best teachers that we're just going.
Yep.
And I think just staying open to each other.
Well, also, as each of us are students, and we also receive information differently. There's certain deliveries, approaches, the way people say things that seem to hit home to us in more piercing ways than others, when the guy sitting next to you might be receiving it differently, and maybe someone else is really hitting home to them. Exactly. There's a teacher for every student, and there's a student for every teacher.
Exactly. People will have asked me when I'm in sort of more conservative areas of the country or the world, oh, what religion are you? And I say, I kind of call my religion I don't know, because I don't know. I'm just here learning. I have spiritual openness, but I don't have a religion. Right. I have I don't know, but I'm open to new information and truth.
Yeah.
and what feels very right to me.
Yep.
And I just stay open.
It's beautiful. Rae, thank you so much.
What a
Seriously,
treat
it's
to
really
be
I
with
really
you.
appreciate you doing this with me. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.